Now it's the Audacity Flourishing Project segment. I would like to introduce my team here. This is Shane and Edric. Hey, are you guys online?
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Okay, so 2 or 3 weeks ago, we hosted a Audacity summit, which was pretty crazy, right? How do you guys feel, man?
That was a pretty wild time. We originally planned for doing an in-person conference, and when COVID came, we had to figure out what was a way to keep things on course. So we had postponed a date, but then we just had to kind of carry on. So we had this really amazing conference, just a few weeks ago.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. That we were limited by what can we do online and still kind of achieve the same kind of creative outcome that we want, because it's not just another conference where we let people sit in and listen to presentation, but we want people to kind of jam and collaborate and have crazy ideas that come out of this conference and create this new connection. So it also created a lot of new opportunities for us to think about how can we connect people across regions and accommodate for more people. So crazy time, but also lots of incredible opportunities.
Yeah, and I think we kind of made some new Audacity friends, some of them who have joined us today. But I guess a lot of the rest here probably might not know what we're talking about. So I think we can just start by showing that video that Edric did. Yeah, that will give you a clear intention of why we did the summit. So I'll just share a little video. If it's jaggy or whatsoever, just let me know in the chat, and then I'll just share the link to the YouTube video and you can watch it later. All right. Here. Okay. You all see it?
Yep.
Yeah, cool. Okay, I'm going to play it. Hope it works. You guys hear it?
Nope.
You don't?
Did you select for sharing video and audio?
Okay, hold on. Let me try and do that. Sure. Yeah, okay, got it. Okay.
Things are cheaper, faster, and better. The average person is healthier, wealthier, and more educated than ever. Surely it's led to a happier society, right? Despite the incredible investment we made, studies after studies found that not only did people's happiness not increase, but people around the world are feeling worse. What is going on here? Turns out the same things that have brought immense benefits to us have also taxed our thinking, wellness, and relationships. The extractive value systems that the late-stage capitalism created have stewarded our society to a place with declining resilience, sense of belonging, meaning, and purpose. We are exponentially increasing our ability to...
Oh, the video stopped.
Oh, I think Jan got stopped. Oh, no.
You're there.
Jan's got caught in the matrix. She's glitched out.
Loneliness pervades the urban population globally. The existing systems optimize for GDP, attention, consumption, efficiency, and productivity. But what about humanity? The flourishing of people who live in it. The next decade will be marked by an explosion in city density and even more rapid technological change. Since neither is going away, we believe it's time to ask new questions for cities at the intersection of our technology and humanity. What more could the city be? What if the goal wasn't to make cities smart, but to make them wise? Cities that solve for human potential, capacity, and inclusiveness at a time of great technological change. What if we can leverage the power of technology not to optimize for attention and efficiency, but human psychological well-being, needed function, and collective harmony? To find these answers, we came up with AudaCities. Across June to October, we're bringing together the top experts from diverse fields to identify 3 to 5 city-scale experiments that solve for human flourishing. The solutions we need for complex big-scale problems can't come from siloed thinking. It will take a big collective effort and innovations to germinate the seeds from the mash between minds and meaning, places and potential, arts and science powered by transformative technology. With the help of our advisory team with years of experience in these fields, we are taking the first steps to build a continuous global community of conscious, cross-disciplinary innovators. Through both offline and offline avenues, we aim to facilitate deep connections and collaborations with the goal to unlearn old beliefs, unlock new frameworks, and unleash alternative designs for our future cities. The cities of the future could be dense, cold citadels of more tech and deeper human disconnection. But we refuse to accept this narrative. With the right collective force, we believe an alternate future is possible, a natural humanistic city where humans can find purpose, passion, and their best self, experience mental and emotional well-being, and truly flourish.
Great. So I apologize. I think the video was a bit draggy for some. So I pasted the video link in our chat so you can watch it later if you like at your own time. So I think Shane mentioned earlier that our summit was initially supposed to be in Singapore. It was a 3-day design sprint where we're going to get delegates from all over the world come and identify what are the 3 to 5 experiments that we could actually deploy in cities. Because of the pandemic, we had to pivot. We are glad that we had the summit in June because there was no reason to delay the conversation anyway. It's whatever is happening in cities right now is still happening despite COVID or not. It's just that because COVID happened, so then these cracks were further kind of enlarged, right? I guess I can share this. Because we recognize that city can be a service and a platform and a playground, and urban city planning is a mammoth effort, right? Let alone redesigning a city that has already been built. So to help us focus our efforts and the conversations that happened last month, we thought that we could identify 3 domains, and we called it our Audacities map. And the 3 domains are minds and meaning, arts and science, places and potential. And with this framework, we were able to identify the opportunity zones and the kind of disciplines that we need to be involved and where we can deploy those efforts to focus our attention with. So I guess the best person to explain this Audacities framework is one of our advisors, Mickey McManus. And I'm gonna just put him on right now, his digital twin. Mickey, are you there? Okay, yeah, he's here.
My digital twin is joined.
Yeah, cool.
Hi. Yeah. No, I don't think I'm your digital twin or your virtual twin or whatever. I feel like I'm probably more like your imaginary stunt double. You kind of call me in to try wild things. And I guess it's crowded in here inside this space. I feel like there's an awful lot of me inside here, all thinking different things. And then we all kind of come together and try to do something in the world. Thanks for inviting me. And what I thought I would do is sort of zoom in on what we're going to be talking about over the 3 days. And today's the first day, so we're going to actually talk about minds and meaning. And in a sense, minds and meaning are sort of about, what makes us human. And in a sense, it's sort of the inner landscape of the mind. It's not the outside world, but it's our sort of inside world. And how do we get out of self-doubt, and how do we get to a point of curiosity, and I don't know, really my goal would be to, how do we help feel a sense of agency? How do we grow ourselves? And our speakers are going to talk a little bit about the intersection of minds and meaning and science and art, and a little bit about, minds don't happen in a vacuum. We actually live in a place and we find potential through time, over time, or we feel lonely and we feel demoralized over time. Sometimes, we get kicked down and we can't get back up. So they're going to be each talking today about sort of the intersection of these things. And tomorrow we're going to have sessions that really look at sciences and arts. You know, I think a lot about how science is sort of like the experimental method. You know, it's that little beaker that we have a hypothesis, and then we turn it on and we try to figure out some way to compress all of our observations and discoveries about phenomena in the universe and turn it into something that gives us predictability. You know, E equals mc squared is a pretty amazing compression that Einstein came up with, 3 letters, a number, but it helped us develop atomic energy. It helped us understand space and time. And it was an incredible way for us to use science to try to predict a little bit about what the future brings. I kind of feel like the other end of that spectrum, though, if science is about the kind of compressible, art, you know, I think of as almost, it's really, how does an artist individually explore the future? How do they look at this sort of uncompressible of human existence, you know? It's not supposed to be about shorthand or cliff notes. In some ways, it's about expanding. It's understanding the inner mind. You know, how do I think about you, and then how do you think about somebody else? You know, that might be the best thing to do would be to sort of read a book about it, a novel or something like that. And that's a scientific investigation. So is painting, so is music, so is all these things that artists are really exploring their own agenda through reacting to the world around them in the moment. And they're sort of helping us push the boundaries of what we know. They're the ones that are the explorers that kind of go to the very edge and they keep going. And so we really want to see how we can embrace both the science side of things, the compressible, but also the uncompressible, the ineffable in some ways. And I think of places and potential as kind of, you know, whether it's our house, whether it's our family, whether it's our street corner, or whether it's our city, you know, or our community. Each one of those is sort of a nested containment, a recursion up and down, but it's the place that things happen. Our minds aren't in a jar. Our minds are like engaging with others. We're shaped by other people. And it also seems to happen not only space, but I think over time. You know, we sometimes feel this sort of infinite happiness, and then we feel really demoralized sadness, like we can't get any lower. And how do we go through over time, find a safe psychological space to kind of stretch ourselves, to almost over time kind of go through the hero's journey, go down into the dumps, you know, the hero's journey, or it's called man or woman in a hole. We get into a hole, but ultimately friends and family and other people help us get back out again. And we're a little better for it at the end, you know? So how do we find that place for experimentation for ourselves of what we could be? And how do we have lifelong learning to explore that? So ultimately our goal would be Minds and Meaning the first day, Science and Art the second day, and sort of brainstorm a little bit during the open sessions, and then really pull it together into pilots and prototypes and experiments that we can try out in place, in potential, to shift really from the old way of thinking about cities to cities that thrive and help us prepare for the unknown, you know, the volatility and uncertainty of the future. I think that's kind of the point of a city, is to help us prepare for the unknown and be able to strive and thrive. Can we keep it moving? Yeah, I know I go on for too long. Well, let's get rolling.
So that was a Mickey kind of giving an introduction when we had the first day of the summit, and he was kind of laying out what the expectation was over the few days. And so this was our organizational design framework that we came up with to try and give the delegates some basis for how we're looking at this. And we'll share a link with anybody that's interested. So you're welcome to read through this and see what you think of our framework. I think we'll share a link to that now in the chat here. But it's, you know, the whole intention here is really to, how do we transform the way that we are currently interacting and engaging with one another in communities, and how can we design experiments that will enable us to be better as humans, like well-being, like our beings are well. So what does that look like in a full, all of the dimensions that are required there? So I think Jan just shared the flourishing framework. And it's the next page. And so when we're thinking about things at these grand scales, you know, what does it look like to enable people to exist better in a society and community in a city? There's so much that affects us. And when we're thinking things at city scale, it's really quite mind-boggling. Like, there are so many things that affect us when we go out into the world. And if you think of us as individuals, on a personal level, maybe you have a meditation practice, or you do yoga, or you're tracking your sleep, you're eating healthy, you go running. That's fantastic. You have the agency over yourself as an individual. And then maybe you go to work, you know, maybe you've got a really fun company where you go in and they have these programs, and you have an HR department that's really taking care and trying to provide you access to good food and good programming. But once you step outside of that and you go out onto the streets, now you've got all kinds of stuff coming at you. There's no one that's really in control that's really looking out for your individual happiness or your wellness. And so that's where we think we have this kind of web of all kinds of actors that need to be coming in and providing assistance. And so with all of these, you know, you can kind of, Jan, maybe you can share some of what we did over the 3 days.
Yeah, okay, can do. Yeah, so these were our speakers, our panel of speakers that were online with us. So Peter was our host. Peter and Nicole was our host. So Peter was the co-author of Make a City, and he basically tries to transform cities through the maker culture. And Nicole is, of course, the co-founder of Transformative Technologies. Then, so each of our advisors actually took on a domain and deep dive into what it means. You can find more about the domain in the link that I shared in chat. About each domain in the link that I shared in chat. And so some highlights of people that actually attended or spoke was Ting Jiang. She's a behavioral economist, and she basically looks at scaled smart city tests, and she's very interested in how individual motivations and theory of the mind actually apply to the context of city design and tech. And then we have Itai Palti. So he runs Conscious Cities, and his work surrounds, you know, asking questions about, you know, what if one day when cities become sentient and have minds, right? How are people going to actually interact with them? And how does that add on to our well-being, right? Are we going to have constantly having this big brother watching us, or can we actually, can cities can actually be a little sister instead, you know, who, you know, play with us and help us transform into better human beings? And then we had Poppy Crumb. She is a chief scientist at Dolby. She's a neuroscientist herself, and she looks at how empathetic technologies can help us connect with each other and ourselves, and you know, try and be aware of this this cognitive load that we have, because our attention currently is now one of the most valuable commodities. So her technologies actually help us to bring an awareness to how we use our attention. And then Lauren Sorkin, someone else that we want to give a shout out to. She's the executive director of the Global Resilient Cities Network, and she has tons and tons of cases and best practices on how flourishing cities and resilient cities can actually be, you know, realized. And of course, one of our other partners, David Tan, he's the assistant CEO of JTC, one of the largest industrial property developer in Singapore. And I think we have some JTC folks on this call as well. So thank you very much for joining us during the summit too. Yeah.
So I think it was kind of like it was almost like a, you know, a TED style conference where you had some really engaging, amazing speakers come in. This is a smattering of various people that were represented over the course of our conference. And I think it's just incredible to get, you know, aligned people that are kind of motivated, that are coming from the same intention of trying to solve problems and putting them together. And then that's when you get really amazing things happening. And so if you go to the next slide, you'll be able to see, you know, just a few of the people that were able to come along on our journey. I think some of you are here that we've got pictures of. And so not so different from the Permacolony Moonshot Challenge. We're also looking at, you know, engaging with the broader community and having people come in and help us define what are some good experiments? What are some good technologies? What are good methodologies? Are there proven practices? Are there concepts that are out there that might align us to having better outcomes? And so this is really quite a fun opportunity where we're going out and really looking at how we can have an effect on city scale and the happiness that people are experiencing in their daily lives and the fulfillment that they have.
Yeah. Adre.
Yeah.
Wanna tell us what went down?
Yeah, so we've gathered like all these incredible people and brilliant minds and visionaries and thought leaders in all their fields. So what do we do with them? We don't, again, as I mentioned, we don't want just them to listen and to the talks and be a waste of their brilliant minds. So we put together everybody into like different groups and break out to really find connection, because these are people from like different types of domains. You hear someone from behavioral science, urban planner, UX design, so completely different domains. They didn't really have the chance to talk to each other. But as Shane mentioned, complex problem requires complex new ways of thinking and solving problems. So it was very challenging, but we managed to kind of think of ways to get them to really jam and think about ways to ask new questions. So we came up with like some questions or prompts that we want to ask them. We didn't know what the solution is to a flourishing city, and that's why we bring these people together. But we really want them to think and spark ideas and connection, to think about what does it take to go from smart city to wise city. What is really the match between well-being, technology, and cities to achieve city-scale human flourishing? What is the technology environment that we need to support this type of transformation for the people who live in the cities? And how can embracing different frameworks, generative design, allow us to interact with one another that is very different from where we are today with the current system that's not supporting that. So you see on the screenshot, like everyone getting in group 6 and just like talking about all these ideas and inspiring each other. And this is just a screenshot of the mirror board, a platform that we use to connect ideas. And at the end of each like 1 hour talk of each day, we got everyone to share what is it that inspired you, what new questions that you have. And then we connect all these different ideas together, because that's when magic happens. Magic doesn't happen when you're sitting alone in the room. That's what I experienced after living COVID and like meeting my friends. I just got so many like sparks and ideas just by someone having different perspectives from mine. And then we create this new bigger solution to old problems. So you can see here, and at the same time, it's not always very different. There's always like themes that allow for collaboration between different fields. So on the screenshot, you could see the theme of meta cognition. So despite everyone having perspectives in different areas, you can see how all converge into a theme of meta connection. How can everyone connect in a meta level? Like an example will be, what if instead of connecting through a very surface level of, through the capitalistic and materialistic kind of framework, what if we could go into a room powered by technology and feel everyone's heartbeat? So imagine the type of reality that we could all experience together. Imagine how we experience group flow together. Some other themes that came out in the groups that I facilitated, just kind of like spark some excitement from you, is the theme of including everybody in the design of a city. It made me question, like, in the city that I live in, is it really designed? Did it take my voice into account when considering this is the place that I live in for like 10 years? Did it take into account the intention to not only support me as who I am, but also to become the person that I need to be, to transcend beyond my current kind of human potential limitation? And then there's the idea of not leaving the people on the margin behind. There's the theme about how could we scale this design that is both participatory and at the same time allowing that chaos that creates the kind of liveliness and laughter and culture in the city. And the idea, there's also interesting themes about tech versus non-tech. So surprisingly or funnily, even though we bring in people a lot from the tech area, a lot of them are very pro to have a more positive connection to technology. Could technology empower us to use less technology, to be more involved and engaged in nature, to really inspire one another in a more kind of humanistic way? So as you could see, a lot of really interesting ideas, and we're just at the beginning. So if you could go to the next slide, you could see some of at the end of the
Shit.
3 days,
Okay.
we, no worries. At the end of 3 days, it was carefully designed so that we started by getting them connected, warm, and start to like kind of diverge, like thinking crazy without limitations, similar to the exercise that Jaden did. And then on the last day, we kind of converge all the ideas together and kind of like start drafting what potential concepts could look like. We're not telling everyone this is going to be a full-blown proposal that you're going to like work with, but if you could just start with something, what would that be? So we gathered some concepts here from everyone's collective ideas. You see like Vision 2050. What if it could envision, everyone could think about what future can look like without having to go through all the difficult experiences of like the policies implemented. What if we could include gamification? There's a concept about intentional slum. Instead of like avoiding it, what if we could design specifically for slum, knowing that there's migration happening with, you know, as Youngan mentioned, rising sea level. And then there's the idea of virtual staircase and the mine house. And there's so many crazy ideas.
Yeah, so maybe I'll just jump in.
Yeah,
there's a lot of concepts, and the intention was to really inspire this community to come together and think a little differently, maybe leave your hat at the door, your normal way of coming in, and play around with some ideas, play around with some concepts. And so we're currently, you know, a couple of weeks after this, we have collected through those breakout sessions, we had about 90 hours of content that we're starting to lump together and synthesize and link themes together. And so, you know, what Edric was just sharing here, some of these concepts that had come out. We're still in the process of kind of identifying some emergent trends or themes that will probably be the scaffolding for people to come in and start, how do we turn this really crazy idea or this vision into something that could actually be an experiment? And so, you know, this is kind of, you know, this isn't just to get people together and talk. Our goal is to really have some impact. If we are not out there testing and experimenting, then this initiative isn't really delivering on what we're trying and what we're intending. And so this this next phase that we're coming up to is our ideation phase, and that's coming up in October. So we're trying to kind of get these scaffolding, reach out to communities, look at what do these experiments actually look like. So we're, you know, kind of fleshing out these skeleton ideas. And after that's done, we'll be working with some researchers and people that have been writing grants for their job, you know, to try and get funding for the research that they're doing. So we'll be engaging this community to really flesh out over the course of a couple months, what would a real experiment look like? Who are the different agents that need to be involved? Are we gonna require municipalities? Do we require technology partners? You know, what kind of funding would be required for that? So we're really trying to package these up into a basket of 3 to 5 different experiments that, you know, when we go out, could really change the body of knowledge that exists in the world. And this would be done through the various partners that we've already mentioned some of, and I identified some of these opportunities. So, so I guess for all of you that are on the call today, if this is your first time hearing about it, great. I hope this was a nice sharing session for you. And for those of you that maybe already know what we've been up to, maybe this was a little bit of an update about what we've been up to since the conference. And so one of the things that I think has happened is we've been totally zoomed out. And, you know, one of the things that we tried to do when we were creating this is make it a little different from a standard Zoom conference. And so we were getting together with people to invite them to just come and hang out. You know, if you go to a conference in real life, you get to go and you might bump into someone on the way to the bathroom, or you're grabbing a coffee between segments and you strike up a conversation. And that serendipity, that opportunity to just have these organic conversations is something we wanted to design into this experience. So we have this Flourishing Jam, which was an opportunity for our delegates to come together and hang out. And so if if anybody on the call now would be interested in still participating in one of these Hangout jam sessions, we've got a link there, bit.ly/Audacities. And we've also got a web, our email address there if you want to reach out to us, and maybe you've got some cool projects, or maybe there's an area that you think would be good served by aligning some of our focus and attention there. This is really kind of still early on in this process. So I guess that's what I would have to say. I invite all of you to come hang out and join us. Jan or Edric, I don't know if you have anything to add.
No,
No,
all
just
good.
excited to connect with
The link doesn't work.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay. We'll send it out in a follow-up email after this.
I clicked on it and it works for me.
Oh, okay.
We,
Any case, let's sort that out in the chat. But I don't want to push the schedule back any further because we have a very, very special guest online as well. And the next segment is Mistletoe Unleashed. So I'm going to invite Atsushi and Joginda to turn on their web cameras and unmute themselves. And Atsushi, I'm going to stop my screen share and you can take over.